So I've heard like he's the far only one to win the prestigious Eisner Award, which is considered to be the comics, like the Oscar of the comics. And his, and his impressive clientele include DC, Image, Boom, and everything like in the comic world that we know today. And he draws inspiration from old and new masters to create some visceral worlds and throws his unique modern twist to them. So let's hear ourselves like with him only. Okay. So what do you?
Thank you, sir. Thanks, ma'am. So once again, thank you guys for coming in today. It's a Saturday, and I'm taking away from your usual routine on a Saturday evening, so I apologize for that. As the introduction said very kindly, I'm an illustrator, freelance illustrator, mostly working in comics. I started off as a freelance illustrator. I've always wanted to keep to drawing, and the act of drawing is what interests me and excites me most as an artist, and which is why I named this. This is a very basic thing. I just put it together yesterday just to have something in the background. But I called it drawing for a living for a reason. Just simply because the simple act of drawing is so innate to humans. Like if you think about it, it's the oldest form of communication, isn't it? Like it predates language, and the fact that the question now is it possible to make a living of just drawing? It's hard, right? Because I've been drawing for a living for so and so number of years. I started in 2000. I started actually making money from drawing in 2008ish while I was still in college, because in JJ people do that. People come from all over the country and they don't have money, so they work while they study. So I was working with them a little bit with my classmates. So that was the first time I made money from drawing, and it was kind of a revelatory experience to be able to make money from that act. And that I wanted to keep through my career, and which is why I never got into an allied field, say animation or tech or AI or whatever the hell, So this is the reason why I wanted to stick to this topic first, because drawing itself is one of the acts that has pulled me out of various situations in my own life. Not to mention, it's something that I go to every time. I maintain a sketchbook almost like I'm not carrying one now, my apologies, but I always have one, and it makes the act of waiting very interesting. Like if you're at an airport, at a cafe, whatever, you pull out a sketchbook and start drawing. It's just that innate and that personal to us. So that's something that I always thought was really integral to me as an artist. So I'm going to keep this very, very brief, and then we can jump to questions. And I don't know what you guys had in mind for this, because I wanted to keep it very, very open. And I'm just going to go through these real quick. These are, as ma'am mentioned, these are a couple of the projects I have worked on, the Cookies Wall, Blooming, etc., etc. So one thing I want to add here is that is very allied to the idea that goes with drawing for a living, is that I do this thing that I always, since I said I didn't ever work in a studio or an agency or whatever, one reason for that is the comic industry provides you something interesting. What it does is it gives you something in between freelance and a job. What I mean by that is, say both of these books, these are old books, I worked on other projects after that. Both of these books are like 100 plus pages. And say it takes you about 2 days to draw a comic book page, right? That means like a year of work, right? Around a year of work. Which means you are basically employed for a year. Which means you're not in a job, you're not employed, but it's as close as you can come to being in a job as you can as a freelancer, right? So what I do is something I call one for them, one for me. I haven't coined the term, others have, I've heard it, but I applied it to my own life. What I do basically is I do 1 year of a graphic novel, then I take the next year off to myself, and I work on my own personal projects, take that money. But that only works, of course, if you work with clients that pay you well. Famously, Indian clients don't pay, or they pay very late and all of that jazz. This is one of the reasons why I never went into advertising or the Indian design industry. Of course, no hate. It's just that they tend to pay you 3-4 months later, and It's just I've never been able to wrap my head around that. So that's one point I really wanted to make, the one for them, one for me idea, because I still follow that. After every book, I've taken a year off. And when I say year off, I don't mean sitting on my ass. I mean putting that time, planning that year, and putting it into your own projects that you initiate, and basically save and invest the money that you make in that 1 year, that you get from international clients, and you put it into projects that you build yourself. So that can be just writing, that can be animation, that can be anything you want. But it's something that you design for yourself. I think that's very critical as an artist. So that's one way I have designed for myself to be a freelancer and still have that order in my life where I'm going to work. Like I get up in the morning, I go to work. I have a studio space, I go to work in the morning. I come back in the evening, I have a separate time period for so and so work. Then I take a break, I do another project. And then even when you're doing personal work, you do some other small things. So what I do is I have one big project running, and then I have small projects running on the side. And what that does, it keeps things mixed and it keeps you entertained as well. I'm just going to go through these really quickly. This was my college illustration project. That was this is third year. That on the left is the project I did in third year, and on the right, can I sit down? You guys can see me. Okay, if you guys can't, just tell me, because I'm a bit tired of standing. Okay. On the right is a project I did in my final year of college in JJ. And even then, I guess you can see, because this is very graphic novel, right? And the project on the right is called Chavi, something I picked back up in one of these break years that I keep talking about. I kind of developed it into a bigger project that I am working on right now. One on the left is a cute little, not cute, the kid dies in the end, but but it's a project that I did in my third year, and my girlfriend at that time wrote the story for it. And then the image on the left is something we did like in the community of comic book artists in India. We did this project where this was just after TAD. Oh, I didn't mention TAD, by the way. I'll take a quick detour and discuss TAD. TAD is the art department. Essentially what that was is after JJ, after 4 years of JJ, I graduated in 2011, and I was wondering what to do because I didn't feel prepared for work, and I had a kind of a style, and we'll revisit that word because I have a huge grudge against the word style. But anyway, so I started looking for postgraduate opportunities where I could study further, etc., etc. And damn, these colleges are so expensive that there's no way my lower middle class family can afford to send me to these American universities. I know you guys can probably relate to that. So I started researching online, and there was this instructor that I really liked, Stalin Hangi. So I messaged him on Facebook back then. In fact, Facebook was a big deal. So I messaged him on Facebook saying, "Yeah, मैं क्या करूँ?" Like, he can't speak Hindi, but I wrote to him saying, I'm completely lost after college. I don't know what to do. I can't afford to go to a university in the US or the Europe or whatever. What can I do? And he suggested this school called the art department, where he was an instructor himself. And it was very cheap, like a fraction of the cost of any of these big schools. So I told my parents, and they were like, "Yeah, are you crazy to put money into this online school?" It's an online school. And back then, online schools weren't the thing. This was 2012, 13. So because it was barely any money, we went for it. And this was back when all of my classmates had already started working or went working, like studying abroad. And I was like, "Shit, yaar, main to ghar pe baith ke kar raha hu." And I started it. And the thing is, the teachers there were really, really good at what they did. And they pulled me back into like the basics of drawing. Like I remember the first couple of assignments in TAD was drawing straight lines. So imagine I was a graduate. I was already a graduate. My friends were working in ad agencies, and I'm sitting and drawing lines. And I was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing? Like, I need to get out and start working, you know." But I kept at it. And the second week, third week was drawing boxes, drawing squares. And this is deceptively hard to do. Drawing spheres, drawing cubes. Go back home and try to draw a cube in space. It's really hard to do freehand. And you have to do, every week you're doing like thousands of them. So you start to kind of think in 3D space. And then you're drawing ellipses in completely freehand in space.
And oh my god, I'm like, is this helping me? I have no idea. I'm back to the actual basics. Um, and I was late teens, early 20s, I believe. So at that age, it's really takes you back, right? So yeah, but then of course things start to get better. Then they start to tell you about the human figure and how it works, how the weight of the human figure works, how to maintain a sketchbook, what the sketchbook is, how to maintain the visual diary, how to come up with your own style. And again, at this point I'll tell you why I have a grudge with the word style. It's because style kind of simplifies the idea of how you draw, right? We keep thinking about, oh, this artist style and that artist style. What I would replace the word style with is personal voice. What that does is it puts the thing in context, because every student, like I'm sure you guys having the same issue. Are you like with style? Are you guys worrying about that? I did too, but I can assure you right now that style is not something you should think about. In that, it's not a final. It's never a final outcome. It's always a work in progress. What the term personal voice is how the way you draw. Like if two people are looking at the same object, and the way they draw it is their personal voice, and that comes from years and years of context, how you've been brought up, where you live, what language you speak, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your friends, your love life. That the personal voice comes from that. It doesn't come from, oh, मैंने तोमर अनुका का काम देख लिया, या फिर मैंने इसका काम देख लिया, उसका काम देख लिया, जेम का काम देख लिया, so I'm adapting it. And you can do that, of course. But eventually, what will happen is you will adapt into your life will start pouring into your personal voice, and which is why I speak about that. Because the reason why I tell you this is because there's always a pressure of college students to, अरे fourth year हो गया, final year हो गया, style नहीं है हमारा, मेरा style नहीं है, उसका style है, and that thing really bothers you. That really pulls you down as an artist. And I think you shouldn't worry about that. And what you should be worrying about is that coming up with that style, coming up with that personal voice. And that personal voice comes from later experience, from life, not from. I mean, it can come from. I don't want to minimize anything. It can come from other looking at other artists, but it's a process. Like I've been drawing for 15 years now, every day, minimum 4 hours a day, and I don't think my style is concrete, because it never is. Everything is always fluid, and I see my work developing and changing and constantly, and it changes according to projects also. And I think it should. I think there's no reason to stick to one kind of drawing or style or whatever. I think it's a more abstract idea than just sticking to one way of drawing. So that's why I wanted to discuss it. And so again, back to the boring stuff.
Ram V, the writer that ma'am talked about, he saw this on Facebook, and I just graduated out. This is after TAG, and he saw it and he's like, "You want to work on something together?" So I was like, "हाँ, ठीक है, मेरे को वैसे भी कुछ, I just got out of college, I'm just looking for work." So he asked me to do the cover for his first anthology book, Black Mamba, and he was kickstarting it. So that was one of the first Indian Kickstarter projects. You know what Kickstarter is? It's a crowdfunding platform basically, where you can put your personal project out and be like, हाँ, हमको पैसा दो, हम तुमको project देंगे, मतलब आगे देंगे, बाद में देंगे. It's a very unique way to work. So this was one of the first Indian Kickstarter projects for Black Mamba, and this was the cover that I did for it, and it did fairly well. But that was kind of gave me the leg into the kind of the American comic industry. After that, we worked on a short story called Miracle Man. I mean, I hate it now, but I mean, at that time it was fun. It was a science fiction short story, 5-6 page short story that eventually got printed in an anthology magazine called Silver Souls or something like that. And then this was fun. This was 2015 or 16. James, I forget his name. James something. He was building a project called Bart Kira. Basically, the world of Simpsons, The Simpsons, right? World of The Simpsons and the world of Akira by Katsuro Otomo. He said, what if we mixed these two projects together and came up with Bart Kira? So, and he made all of those 5, how many ever volumes there are of Akira, right? He made all of it with the Simpsons characters. So it's a really interesting project, and it was launched in Japan around 2016. You can go and look it up. I did 5 pages for it, and it wasn't paid, so I did it in my free time. But it was fun, and it opened more doors to me. Then more things. Rubber Band Karke, there's a company that sent me some sketchbooks to draw on, and I drew on it.
and I put it up online. And then Imagine FX is a magazine. You guys heard of it? It's a British magazine called Imagine FX. They reached out after looking at my stuff on Facebook, and they said, "Oh, we like the way you draw. Can you make workshops for us? Can you?" And they featured me in their magazine as well. And they asked me if I can do workshops, painting workshop for their magazine. And this was my first proper international well-paying job. And again, I think this was in 2015 or 16. I don't remember. But yeah, like how basic things like drawing a sketchbook can lead to paid work was very interesting to me. It was the first time it happened to me. So कर दिया मैंने मतलब, and I was new. Imagine like doing teaching workshops in Imagine FX as someone who just started working. So it was kind of hilarious, but it was fun. And Imagine FX was something I grew up with, so it was really cool. That led to, so it's interesting how one thing leads to another in the Wild West, right? Because you do something, you put it out in the world, and then someone looks at it and goes, हमको ये चाहिए, तुमको पैसा देगा. And that turns into your personal work, eventually becomes something that earns you money. And I think that's quite valuable to me personally. Anything that makes money is valuable. So this is another cover I did for Briggins. Two covers, both of these covers for Briggins. This is a science fiction story. This is printed by, I believe, Vault Comics, not very well. Then around 2017, I started working on Graffiti's Wall. And the Graffiti's Wall was also crowdfunded. It was through a publisher called Unbound. The unique feature that Unbound uses was the same as Kickstarter, but for books. All their books are crowdfunded. So they put a pitch out and they ask people for money, and when they have the money, they start printing. So they don't do anything before. So we made Graffiti's Wall like that. It wasn't well paid. I got $75 a page at the time, so $5,000. And I was unmarried. I was single. I was okay with it. I had a very, very tiny studio, so I could afford it. So I took it up. I took a year. 2017, I was done with it. 2018, we launched it in Unbound in a Thought Bubble in the UK in Leeds, and did fairly well. Year after, Dark Horse Comics reached out to us saying they want to buy the rights, and they printed the book in for Dark Horse. So Dark Horse kind of adopted it. We got some money from that. So yeah, one thing leads to another. Then sketchbook stuff from around the time. More sketchbook stuff. This is kind of the voice thing. And now that I said that I hate the word style, I can't use it right. You guys will be like, you hate it, but you keep using it. So this was the kind of the technique I was using while drawing. Then, when I was in the UK, where Aram lives, we met and discussed the idea we had for a second graphic novel, second collaboration together. And the way he pitched it to me, he said, "Okay, see, we've done a book together, it did fairly well. Let's keep the momentum and keep working on that." And even already by then, I had a sense of, I was seeking this authorship. Basically, I wanted to write my own stories. But the thing is, I'm not a trained writer, right? So I was like, how do I manage to learn another skill, right? Because drawing already is a whole world of skill. And then learning a different skill to then write and draw your own story, that was too much. And by then, Ram had arranged some sort of funding for this project as well. So and then he pitched it to me like, he said, what if a person's talent was personified in a horror context? Say talent as a personified character haunts. And I was like, this is interesting. I could work with something like that. And then we started, and then this is based in the US, and it's about a saxophonist who kind of comes back to his parents' house, comes to his mother's house, and he learns things about his mother, his own ancestry in the house, and the demon of his talent kind of confronts him, and then he gets better through time, and he becomes this maestro and stuff like that. And he loses things while doing that. And this was during COVID, so it was a kind of a special story because funding wasn't great, and we had just moved. By then I was married, and we had just moved to a new house, and funding was short. COVID, so my wife lost her job, and she works in makeup, so she lost her job. It was rough, like we didn't know how to make ends meet. But luckily, I was able to pick up other jobs while I was doing this. So I picked up other gigs, short stories, covers. Covers are a thing we'll come back to, but covers are what kept me afloat. So doing green Kia, and the reason why blue green was special to me is because there's this idea in art, right, that you have to suffer to create good art. That's a lot of people will say that, and that's something that I started to kind of believe around it when I was drawing this, because firstly I was using my own face as reference for the character, and he's black, I'm not, but thoda maine kiya usme. But I started using my own face. So in the end, I started kind of seeing myself in the character in a way, and because the character was suffering, and the character was suffering for his art, right, and that kind of, and I was kind of mirroring that when I was drawing the project. So it got very trippy because COVID था घर में अकेले पूरा दिन and then I was drawing, and there's दिन रात कुछ भी नहीं है, मतलब everything was flowing into one another. Like day went into night, night went into the next day, and I kind of lost track of time. And we short of money, so there's no money, we broke and we had to pay rent. So कैसे भी करके it got into a weird space where I started relating too much to the character. And eventually, after I finished the project, I kind of got out of it. But I mean, I still remember the time. And then one thing flipped. I think towards the end, I was running, and that weird trippiness of the story kind of slowed me down because I was collaborating with a writer, and there's no structure to it because there's no editor there. We were just working together, and he was also working on other things, I was also working on other things, so it was very hard to coordinate. So what we started doing is we started doing this kind of jugalbandi thing where he would call me in the morning, every morning, and he lives in the UK, so his morning is different from my morning. So he used to call me around 9 a.m. for him, which is 1 p.m. for me. So I used to get on calls 1 p.m. with the writer. We used to discuss the next page. Then I used to spend the rest of the day drawing and then scan it by the end of the day. And then he would discuss the next page. So it was weird, like normally people don't work like that. People have scripts, full script. Then you discuss it with the editor, then you do thumbnails, then you do pencils, etc. This project was weird in a way that no one had money. कैसे तो बना रहे हैं, कैसे तो कर रहे हैं. And but it was kind of cool because it was like a musical jazz performance between two collaborators. And I found that interesting because the story is about jazz in the end. And jazz has this improvisational quality to it that we kind of tapped into. So yeah, I mean, so one thing, and then I was running late on this, and then one thing flipped. I started, then I like, there's one day when I had this discussion with the writer, with Ram, and then I decided to change something. I decided to basically call the day a unit. Basically, sleep on a certain time. So this is very, very basic. I know I'm going to super basic level, but I wasn't sleeping. I was working through the night, and I was sleep a few hours in the day, and then I was sleeping again. I'm not working. I'm working through the night again. But that one instant, I decided to just sleep. Just sleep at 11:30, 12 every night. काम हुआ है नहीं हुआ, it doesn't matter. Go to sleep. And that somehow just shifted the tone completely of the book. And then I was able to produce more work, and I was able to be better. And it's a very, very simple trick, but it works. Like wake up on a certain time, sleep at a certain time of the day. Somehow everyone will tell you that is very bad advice, but it works. Somehow it just works, and I still follow it. Like if I'm if I'm back on a project and if I'm not, it's not working out for me. It होता है रात दिन होता है. When you have deadline, you can't be like, I have to sleep at 11:30. Doesn't work. But mostly I try to follow this basic advice. Sleep on time, wake up on time, etc. But yeah, some of the trippiness kind of leaked into the project, I believe. I don't know if it's okay. So this is the opening page on the left, and couple of pages. This is where he learns that his mother has died, so he flies back to his hometown, etc., etc. Very trippy stuff. Horror, random stuff. Anyway, one thing I want to tap into is if you guys are into comics and if you guys like to draw traditionally, one incentive to that. I know it's really hard to do because of so many different. We were just discussing what is that? Grease pencil, Blender. Yeah, with so many amazing software that I can draw by hand. One incentive is that original sells. Again, money, right? Original sells. So what? One of the instructors at TAD had very wisely said, like, sell your work more than once. What that means is, if you're drawing a comic book, you are getting a page rate for as a professional, you get a page rate for the work. So you have a page rate. Everyone is a different tier. Most artists are between 250 to 700 $600 per page. I'm in that category as well. The top tier artists are 800 plus dollars per page, and that's very rare. Um, so that's the first way of making money off a comic book, your page rate. Second is conventions. You go to conventions, you get commissions, you sign stuff, you do things for collectors, etc. That's the second way, which I don't do because I'm socially awkward. So I don't do that. Third way is commissions, where the collectors just call you and be like, अरे मेरे को Spider-Man ये style में आपके style में देखना है, या फिर Wolverine मेरे को आपके style में देखना है, Batman मेरे को आपके style में देखना है, मैं आपको $500,000 दे दूँगा, आप करो. And then you can take your sweet time, you can take a year to do it. It's fine. And that's the third way of making money in comics. The fourth way is original art, which I feel like I luckily tapped into. People collect original art because they gamble on your career. They say कि अरे ये artist आगे जाके अगर बड़ा बना तो ये page में इससे खरीदना वो double triple हो जाएगा बाद में. So it's an investment. So they collect, and it's a huge market. I didn't know this, but I had a representative reach out to me when I was drawing graffiti's wall. When I was doing green, and that was one of the things that saved me. Like they were like graffiti's wall के pages आप बेच दो मेरे को. मैंने बोला कि यार मैंने तो कार्ट्रिज पेपर पे ड्रॉ किया बोथ साइड्स बिकॉज आई डिडंट हैव मनी लाइक यूजिंग बॉलपॉइंट पेन एंड इंक पेन टू ड्रॉ लाइक इंक पेन पे नहीं किया जेल पेन टू ड्रॉ मेरे सब बॉर्डर्स में पूरा इंक है और मैं पैसा कैसे तो करके किया हुआ है सो ही सेड दैट्स फाइन इफ पीपल लाइक टू सी इट so those pages sold like graffiti's work of pages 120 pages not all of them but 35% of them sold and that kind of funded this project and I sold this one also so I was like okay good So original art does sell. So if you are ever thinking कि अरे यार इतना बड़े अच्छे softwares हैं मैं क्यों हाथ से बना रहा हूँ, well there is an incentive. People like to draw. And again, you know what? I'll be honest with you guys. In the world of AI, eventually the value of anything hand drawn is always going to remain or is going to go up. Just simply because look at AI. Look at everything that is artificial intelligence like generated, right? It looks the same. It looks boring as hell. And honestly, like, yes, some of it is amazing. Yes, it can take your job away. And yes, you can be broke because of it. But in the end, eventually, like I said, is the oldest medium. Drawing is the oldest medium, right? And eventually, we will come back to that. So there is value in it. I mean, I'll be blind and be like blind leading the blind. Right? I'll be in a corner defending drawing by hand at all times. So if you're ever thinking कि यार हाथ से नहीं बनाना चाहिए, we should shift to चलो digitally बना लो ठीक है, but shift to AI whatever generate our images, don't do that. More sketchbook stuff around this time. Some of it is pen and ink. This is pen and ink for example. This is like Micron and both this quality is horrible. But yeah, this is acrylic and graphite. This is collage and acrylic graphite, whatever. This is also that. This is the colors are digital. But the basic drawing is ink and graphite. Then I took another year off. After doing green, I developed more stuff of my own. Then I worked on a project called Kuntham, which was a personal project of mine. We can get to that later, but I don't know right now. But then we started a project called Radio Apocalypse, which is a story that we discussed way back. Again, same creative team, Vidikar, Raman, and it was about the story again centered around music. Which is funny because all three of our projects are around music. So the crux of the story is that apocalypse is here and the world is gone to shit, but there's one radio station that is still on. And what plays on the radio station are there alerts, are there one place where music plays, stuff like that. And this guy who's a radio jockey, this cool guy is smoking with it, this and that. And well, story interesting है, but हुआ नहीं कुछ नहीं. Did 2 issues and then the project kind of went to the ground. So unfortunately we weren't able to keep it running. तो ये भी होता है कि there are wins and there are losses. We did 2 issues. Yeah, so this is issue 2 I believe. No, this is still issue 1. After issue 2, the publisher's Vault, and Vault wasn't marketing it, I don't know what happened. We kind of stopped working. This is again the original art which some of it sold and made me some money. Then we take a small break to look at some covers around the time. I'm going to jump through really quick because I know this is boring for you. Thank you. Then this was my first debut with DC Comics. So they reached out to me for an anthology, Batman Urban Legends. It's a 10-pager in each issue, so 3 of them, so 30 pages, and DC pays well. So again, so I did that, and then I did another short story it's called True Weird. This is black and white. This is based in India. So again, I'm kind of experimenting with styles. Then this was my latest project. I'm really running through these. This is Resurrection, issue 1. Cover here on the left hand side, and this is one of the trial pages that we did. So you can see kind of the style kind of mixing and matching there. So Graffiti's wall, I work purely with line. Blue and green, I work purely with tone and value. And third one, I want to mix and match. With Resurrection Man, I wanted to mix and match. So I had a bit of line in there and a bit of value and tone as well. Because I wanted that painterly quality to it. So Resurrection Man ka concept is very interesting. It's a DC, property, and the cool thing is that it's not one of these underwear outside wala superheroes. It's like whatever kills him, he comes back with the same power. Like for example, if he dies of fire, he'll come back with the power of fire. So that's the superhero based story of this thing. And which kind of opens you up to interesting ideas. Like for example, what happens in the opening issue of Resurrection Man is that he dies of time. He becomes old and he dies. So he kind of has control over time eventually because then time kid. So ऐसा करके तो बहुत कुछ उससे होता है. And then the story kind of goes from there. And it goes to the World War and Japanese imperialists killing a bunch of prisoners of war, etc. It goes on its own track. So I just finished April when I finished the last issue, 6 issues of that. So one small distinction, if you are into comics and if you want to make a career in comics, one small bit of information I want to give you is there are 2 types of comics. One is when you work with a big publisher like DC or Marvel or whatever. And the other is if you work with Image. Image is also a magic company, but the difference is that Image doesn't own the rights of your project. Like DC, Resurrection Man, I don't own at all. They paid me a page rate, they paid me pretty well, and I sold some of the original art again, but I don't own the character as a creator. But Image, Blue and Green ka rights, me and Ram own equally. So we are co-creators of this project. And that happened in fact. Universal came to us and said they want rights to adapt it into a show. And that's called optioning. Optioning essentially means a company will come to you and say, oh ये तुम्हारा जो भी project है उसमें हमको option करना है, just keep it reserved for us and we will do with it whatever we want. So option it for a year and then in that year we will probably make a show of it or a film of it or whatever. And that kind of happened with us. And I don't know if I can disclose much, but it didn't go anywhere. Of course, they optioned it for a couple of years and then we got the rights back. So we made some money of it, but it wasn't like a massive deal. But DC projects don't work like that. DC Marvel, they own the rights, so you only get the page rate and eventually get some royalty, but it's not a huge deal. So the great thing about working with something like Image, where it's a creator-owned publishing house, where you own the rights, is that if it goes somewhere, you instantly become a millionaire. Because say for example, the Walking Dead was an Image series that got adapted to the AMC show. Right? Invincible, which was an Amazon Prime show, was also both apparently were created by the same creator. But both of these things got adapted by these companies, and they were both comics. So the creators own the rights to those things, not the big companies. So that's one thing that I thought I should have touched. Then more Resurrection Man stuff. Mike Spicer was the colorist on this. I did the inks and pencils, and Aditya Bedekar was the letter. This is issue 2, this is issue 3, and this is how it looks in print. Issue 4, where like a Mahabharat scene, and then just got laughs and things. So this is issue 5, issue 6 I put in this. So yeah, that's all the comics that I've done so far. Before I go into, I finished work on Resurrection a couple of months ago, and since then I've been working with Bloomberg on a short. That's drastically different from what I've done before. This is completely non-fiction. Like the Bloomberg project is completely non-fiction, so that's going to be out. I don't know again. I don't know if I can talk about it, but it's going to be out sometime in the next couple of months. So that's what I'm currently working on. But mostly I'm doing the thing where, you know what I said, one for you, one for me, one for them, one for us, one for me, right? So I spent a year and a half drawing Resurrection. It's going to take another year for myself. So I'll take up small gigs, but mostly I'll be focusing on my own work. I have a project in mind that I've been writing. Remember that Chabi thing I showed you, the first project, college thing. So I've kind of been able to develop it further, and I have now kind of cracked the big story for it. Like I still don't know how the small details work, but I give it like an hour and a half every day, and we'll see what happens in the end. But eventually, that's the idea. I'm not doing a job, but then 1 year you work on a project. Like it's basically like a job. You go to work, finish your work. Then you take a year for yourself. And that's what I do. And then you focus on your own personal work. So what that does is that gives you enough time to build your own kind of, and this is something that everyone that I've spoken to who's either a freelancer or working for a company or a job, they always have this complaint कि मेरे खुद का कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, मैं कर रहा हूँ कंपनी के लिए काम 10 साल हो गए, 15 साल, I'm doing really well, I'm making a lot of money, but I'm not able to build my own work. And I have an idea I haven't been able to develop. So this kind of works in that direction where you work for a certain period of time, and freelancing of course gives you that freedom. You work for a certain amount of time, you save up that money, invest, learn how to invest money in the market or not. Use that money to fuel your own projects. And then till the point where that project makes money for yourself, you either pitch the project or you take that project to a press sponsor or publisher or whatever. There are many ways to fund your project. I haven't figured out how to fund my own, but that's a discussion for a different. But so yeah, I'm just going to take you through some covers. Covers are what I do in the middle when I have a lot of free time. I do covers just to experiment and kind of touch on my own thing. Some of these covers I did kind of in the last 2-3 years. These are all for comics. Left on this is for Boom. On the right is Department of Truth Image. Red flavors Boom. Coda Image? No, Boom. The Deviant is on the right for Image. And the left is, I forget the name, but it's for Boom. Dark Horse on the left. Boom on the right. So yeah, these are some of the covers I do. So again, covers are something that is, you get to still be affiliated with the comic book industry while it's still, you still have a kind of an open timeline and you have a lot of free time on that. So when I take my break here, I do covers. And if you've noticed, I kind of try to explore my own style. While doing covers, just simply because I'm not doing them for. In the end, it's something that kind of contributes to your own consciousness as an artist, right? And it kind of builds into your own personal voice. So I'm very aware of that when I'm doing covers. So basically, it's portfolio pieces that people pay for. I've included some process stuff for how I would approach a cover, for example. This is for Department of Truth, where the X's mean something. They have some sort of value, some sort of meaning. So this is main character who's being manipulated by this FBI guy, and like X for eyes is a recurring theme in the story. So you notice that there is like X very clean. When you squint, you can see the X shapes on the design. So I did a bunch of roughs like thumbnail, etc. References. You know all this stuff. But basically, this is from the process. Then, if you remember, I discussed the one more personal projects I was working on. So that I have been able to develop a little bit further. And whenever I have free time when I do personal work, I kind of always return to that. Essentially, Kuntama is like in Malayalam is like a placeholder term where when something doesn't have a name or you can't place it in your head, you call it that. It's like a derogatory thing. So, so the idea is that it doesn't have like a meaning of its own. It's extremely subjective. Like people are able to call it whatever the hell they want to. So the idea is that there's no subjectivity, there's no objectivity to the idea. Everything is so when a viewer looks at it, they can project their own ideas onto the object or the person, and that's essentially the project. Then eventually I kind of took that idea, and I thought, okay, so if there is an object that is like this, that has no objectivity, and when I say objectivity, I mean it doesn't have any meaning of its own. And when you take away all meaning of an object from itself, if all meaning of that object belongs to the person viewing it, right? Everything is subjective at that point. So then it becomes a kind of a personification of passivity. Like it doesn't have any intent of its own, any kind of any motivation of its own. Essentially, that is the idea. I won't bore you with it. And I'm kind of taking that idea forward in a way where I have now. So if the object is like that, what are the characters that you can give to the collector of the object is what I'm working on now. So it goes into various abstract directions. This is the most abstract thing that I have done in my life, and I want to keep exploring it for the next 10 years. We'll see where it goes. Sketchbooking is something that I've always kind of gone back to. So this is something that I want to touch on. Are you guys bored? No. If you guys are bored, just raise your hand. I'll stop, or we can jump on something else. Because I'm not used to talking about my work to big audience, and so I tend to ramble on. So, in case you ever want to have, also if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'm totally okay to talk about it. So, the reason why I bring up sketchbook is, so I've showed you all my professional work so far, and one thing I do every time. And this has to do with personal voice as well. Is because if you've noticed, I work in different ways, right? Different techniques, different methods of drawing, different styles. What I generally tend to do is after I finish a project, I return to the sketchbook. So I think of it like an anchor. So what you do is if your work is like a pond, and you are a boat. What you do is, you put a heavy anchor into the water, and then you can go to any direction you want in the pond, and you come back to that anchor, and that anchor is a sketchbook. Essentially, sketchbook is the heart of your practice. It's what you always return to. So if you go in this direction, where things are very abstract, things that you break down shapes, and you're working on horror, and you're working on humor, and you work on slice of life, you work on any number of things, extreme realism, extreme whatever cartoon. You come back after the project, you come back to that anchor, and then it kind of shows you what you are and where you are as an artist. It kind of centers you, because your brain, it takes you a minute to kind of realize, oh shit, like this is me. You know what I mean? Because you are drawing in a certain way, and eventually now when you guys are still students, so but I know you're here for a reason, right? You're artists for a reason, because you always drew, and you can't. We can't take the art away from the human, right? So at some point you kind of lose yourself. Mera art kaisa dikhta hai? Because you are adapting to because we are applied artists in the end. And even though you are doing fine art projects like what I showed you eventually, like my personal projects are, you are doing projects for a client, right? You're doing projects with a writer or for an audience. So you go away from the anchor a little bit, but eventually you always come back. You find that, look at that sketchbook, you draw on it a little bit, then you realize, okay, so this is what my works look like, what work looks like, and I can always return to it. So this is why I always maintain a sketchbook. And of course, the visual diary aspect of everybody knows that, visual diary hai. तुम्हारा record करो, कहीं भी जाके record करो, ये करो, वो करो. And what I discussed earlier, the act of waiting is something that a schedule kind of fixes, right? Because imagine going to a meeting and someone is late. You just open your crack open sketchbook and start drawing, and that kind of becomes an act of waiting. So the act of waiting becomes very interesting because you are kind of observing your surroundings. So again, none of this is stuff no one has told you before as students. But the anchor thing, I think, I don't know if people have told you this because it's very personal to me. So I do this. So I'm just telling you, it helps. So yeah, the sketchbook is something that I always. This is very old stuff. I don't know. But this is before my grandmother passed away, and I used to draw a lot. And I really like people who don't notice that you are drawing them. You know what I mean? I've always noticed that when you draw someone, it becomes an almost voyeuristic act to draw someone because you are observing them and you don't want them to know that you're drawing them. So it becomes a very weird act. So I like to draw people who don't care that you're looking. My dad is like that. He doesn't. When I'm drawing, he's doing this only to सो जाएगा मस्त बैठे या फिर टीवी पे टीवी देखता रहेगा. He don't care that I'm drawing. But my mom is not like that. When I'm drawing her, she's like, हाँ मुझे अच्छा बनाना है, पतला बनाना है. So yeah, I mean, in fact, when the object of your observation while drawing knows that they are being observed is where the problem lies, because then they get stiff. Because the observed person is always kind of, when someone knows that, oh, I'm being watched by like so and so number of people, I'll be a little bit stiff. But when I know that no one is watching me, of course there's that whole discussion of consent that we have. I don't know how far we can go and what is it. And, there's a whole discussion to be had because then, of course, when someone doesn't know you, you can't photograph them. That's wrong. But is it okay to draw them? Because a photograph of a human being is still an aspect of that person. But a drawing of a person, I'm not sure if is that a different entity? Again, then we are going to abstract. But yeah, this is something that I really enjoy doing. More sketchbook from life. That's it. That's the last. This is again very old. 2008 नहीं लिखा है, but 23. I haven't put images of that. But nowadays I don't consciously sketch when I'm home. I do it when I'm traveling. I do it when I'm out. Especially because I like the idea of drawing in airports and cafes or in waiting rooms and that kind of thing, instead of drawing at home. Because again, drawing at home has its own kind of different flavor. So yeah, now you guys have seen kind of all the aspects of my career. And that's it. I don't have anything else to add. I have a couple of personal projects that I'm working on. Some have to do with the collector project. Some have to do with Chavi. Both of these projects I'm working on right now. But I don't want to spoil it because I have this really bad habit of jumping the gun and then slowing down on my own projects. So I don't want to do that. And eventually, if it ever kind of becomes something, we can always talk about it. But yeah, that's it. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. No questions. Cool. Yeah. You need a mic?
No, it's fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, so your art is really cool.
Thank you.
And I really want to develop my visual library. Usually when I sit down to draw, I'm usually blank and then I end up opening Pinterest and just randomly browsing.
Right.
So are there any art exercises you do or have done that helps you build a visual library?
That's a really good question. What do you do to build a library? I would avoid drawing from Pinterest just simply because that's already someone's Pinterest board, right? That's already someone who's inspired and put the images up, and they've already pinned it. So in a way, you are drawing off of someone else's inspiration, So how do you come up with something original when someone has already looked at that and gone, "Arey, mere ko maza aega." Of course, you can draw from it. I'm not saying don't do it. I am all for drawing. Draw anything. But what I would be more interested in is just look around. Just, then there's a question of what you find interesting. Then you have to ask yourself that. Then it becomes an introspective question, right? What do you find interesting as an artist? So when you say ki you're blank, what if you just sit down and draw what is next to you, an object? And there is also the fact that something is banal or uninteresting only as much as the way you look at it, right? Is there any way you can make it interesting? And how loyal do you want to be to that idea of observation? Say you break it down to the fact that you observe it to the point where you draw the boring stuff and then you add your own masala to it and then you make it. What do you find interesting? That's the question to ask. So I would turn it back to you and ask you, like, what is it that you find interesting? Is there anything you look at and go like, "Arey yaar, like ye isme maza aa raha hai." Like for example, me, like when I draw people, what interests me is the restricted figure. It interests me a lot. Because a lot of people, like animators, for example, love the dynamism, the human form in action, right? I personally like the opposite. I like the rest, like the weight of something that falls. When the human hand, when it rests, it looks very different from the way when it's in action or the muscles are contracting. I find interest in that. So, but that comes with many years of drawing, and then you start to go, "Ye isme maza aa raha hai. Arey ye karta hai, wo karta hai." So then, but the act of drawing. So whenever you feel blank, I would say, what I personally do is when I'm turning a blank in my head, is I distract myself with audio. Like I listen to an audiobook, and then I take away the brain of it. Stop thinking about it and see what comes out. Whether you want to draw something that you're already seeing, or you start with just there are lots of things you can do. But these are all self-initiated. These are not taking from the outside. I mean, of course you can. Like I said, there are no rules to this. But that's what I would do. I would ask myself, what is it that I find interesting in drawing, and then maybe exploring more of that. So yeah, that could be, I guess, I don't know if it helps.
I have another question. How do you get noticed by people who can give you jobs? Like you have to put your workout on some platform, and Instagram is getting kind of messed up.
It's getting,
So
I don't even know where to start with that. So the reels and all that nonsense. But I can't deny that people get work from it. So it all depends on what kind of work you're looking for. In comics, there's a very rigid way of getting work. If you want to work in comics, you build a portfolio and you put up a website or Behance. Then you approach writers or you approach editors, and you find them either in conventions or you find their email addresses online, and then you start writing to them saying, "Dekh, mera aisa hai, mera kaam aisa hai. I'm looking for work, and let me know what you think. I'm willing to work for so and so number of so and so money for right now, but with my next project I'll be charging this much." So for the first project you give them a little bit of slack. Chalo, I'll work for $50 per page, because that's rare. No one does that. And how else? I mean, social media is powerful. I won't take that away from it. I'm not super active on it, but I know that social media is local काम मिलता है. But if you don't want to do that, like build a website, have a Behance. Twitter, I think, is not useful anymore. It used to be very much Twitter, now it's not. So, but nothing can replace this personal interaction between you and the art director or the. I'm very socially anxious, so I don't do any of that. I just. So far, I've been lucky enough to not to have to do that. But people, I know that people do that. Just start sending your work to, or work with writers. But reaching out to editors is the easiest way.